You gave them pieces of you they didn't deserve. You handed out loyalty like candy, and they chewed it up like it was disposable. Look at you, still standing here, trying to figure out what went wrong. You didn't go wrong. They just weren't built to handle something real. And the truth is, most people aren't. Most people panic when they meet someone who doesn't play games, who doesn't lie, who doesn't leave when it gets inconvenient. They talk about wanting honesty, but when you give them that raw, uncomfortable, ugly truth, they run. They run because it mirrors their own dishonesty, their own fakeness. And you get left wondering what the hell just happened. That's the first mistake people like you make. Thinking loyalty guarantees loyalty. It doesn't. Your heart ain't a contract. Just because you gave them your best doesn't mean they'll treat it like it's gold. Most of them see value only in what they can use, not what they can keep. You were fuel. You were comfort. You were attention. And when they had enough, when they filled their cup with your energy, they vanished. No warnings, no goodbyes, just silence. And now, you sit here, feeling like the one who failed. But let me tell you something serious. You didn't fail. You just outgrew the cage they wanted to keep you in. They never expected you to notice the pattern. They counted on your patience, your softness, your endless forgiveness. But now you're here, cracking open your own rib cage, searching for your worth in the ashes they left behind. That's not weakness. That's rebirth. And rebirth always comes with pain. You gotta leave them behind. I know it's not easy. Trust me. I know. It hurts when the ones you'd fight for don't even bother to show up when you're bleeding. But holding on to people who've already let go of you, that's suicide in slow motion. You need to bury their memory in silence, not keep resurrecting their name in your thoughts. They made their choice, and silence is a loud answer. They didn't forget you. They just didn't care enough. That's all there is to it. Look around. The world ain't gonna pause for your heartbreak. It's not gonna wait for your tears to dry. It moves on. Time doesn't stop because someone shattered you. That clock keeps ticking whether you heal or not. So, you better start walking. Better start fixing your crown with bloody hands and tired eyes. Because no one's coming to save you. Not them. Not the people who watched you fall. And definitely not the ones who pushed you. But here's the twist. You don't need saving. You just need to let go. You need to burn the old version of yourself they grew comfortable disrespecting. Let them choke on your absence. Let them learn the hard way that once you walk away, you never come back the same. That's how you win. Not with noise, not with anger, but with transformation. Be so unrecognizable that they can't even approach the new you. Make your silence loud. Make your success sharp. Make your glow blinding. That's the revenge they never see coming. And don't you dare wait for their apology. Some people ain't sorry. Not because they didn't hurt you, but because they don't value you enough to care. And that's a truth you gotta swallow. Cold, harsh, real. But it sets you free. You don't owe them closure. You owe yourself peace. And peace starts when you stop explaining your worth to people who never deserved access to it in the first place. So yeah, leave them behind. They were a chapter, not your whole damn story. And this journey you're about to start, it's yours alone, built on your pain, your silence, your discipline. It's not about proving anything to them anymore. It's about showing yourself what you're really made of when all you got left is your name and your fire. Burn bright. Burn everything that held you back. Because now the real story begins. You know what the funny part is? They'll start missing you the moment you finally stop needing them. That's how people work. They don't appreciate what stays. They romanticize what leaves. They remember what they can't replace. And when you finally pull the plug on your attention, your support, your presence, they'll feel that silence creeping in like a storm they can't control. They'll scroll through the same old messages looking for signs of life. But it'll be too late. Because by then, you'll be too far gone. Not physically. No. Mentally. Emotionally. Spiritually. You'll have built a whole new version of yourself that doesn't flinch at their name, that doesn't ache at the thought of their absence. A version of you that isn't trying to be enough for people who were never ready for something real. And don't lie to yourself. You saw the signs. You just didn't want to believe them. You excused the distance. You forgave the cold replies. You swallowed your pride every time they pushed you to the edge and pretended like they didn't notice. You gave chances like they were endless. But the truth is, you were the only one showing up. You were the one who stayed up when they were down. You were the one who carried their chaos while they ignored your silence. You gave too much to people who gave you just enough to keep you around. That wasn't love. That was manipulation with a pretty face. That was convenience wrapped in fake promises. And now that you're awake, now that the fog's lifted, it's your responsibility to walk away, even if your heart begs you to stay. Pain doesn't always come from losing people. Sometimes it comes from realizing they were never really yours to begin with. You created a version of them in your mind. You saw potential where there was nothing but patterns. You imagined loyalty, empathy, growth, when in reality, you were loving a mask, a mirror, something hollow. And the day you finally stop trying to fix what's not broken, just toxic, is the day you take your first real breath. Because you can't heal in the same place you got hurt. You can't rebuild yourself around people who benefit from your brokenness. That's not strength. That's sabotage dressed as love. They say time heals everything. Lieutenant, time only teaches. And if you're not learning, you're just bleeding in circles. You don't need more time. You need more discipline. You need to stop checking their page. Stop watching their stories. Stop hoping they'll come back with different energy. They won't. People don't change unless they lose something real. And even then, most don't learn. They just move on to someone else who's easier to fool. So, stop waiting for their growth. Focus on your own. Turn your pain into bricks. Build your empire in silence. Build it so high they can't even see the top of what you've become. And when they look back, all they'll see is the moment you stopped explaining yourself and started evolving. You gotta treat your peace like it's priceless, because it is. You've been giving away your time, your energy, your love, like it's nothing. Like you're afraid they'll leave if you stop giving. Let them leave. Let them. Because anyone who only sticks around when you're bleeding isn't a partner. They're a parasite. And you're no host. Not anymore. You've bled enough. Cried enough. Begged enough. Now it's time to rebuild in silence, with purpose, with rage, even. That cold fire in your chest, that's your power. Use it. Use it to discipline yourself, to stay focused, to level up so hard they can't even access you anymore. Not even with apologies, not even with tears. Because this journey now, it's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving you were right. You were always enough. You were always real. They just didn't recognize the value of gold while they were too busy playing with glitter. And the moment you leave them behind, you step into the beginning of something that has nothing to do with them. You stop surviving and start creating something for you, something sacred, something no one can take credit for but you. And that's where it all changes. You ever notice how quiet it gets once you stop chasing people? That silence, that's not loneliness, that's clarity. That's the sound of your energy returning home. Because when you stop running after people who treat you like an option, you start seeing the truth for what it really is. You weren't hard to love. They were just too selfish to do it right. You weren't too much. They were too little. And all that time you spent overthinking what you could have done better, that was time wasted trying to fix someone who was never built to care in the first place. You gave them consistency. They gave you confusion. You gave them loyalty. They gave you silence. That trade was never fair. And deep down, you knew it. But you held on anyway, didn't you? Because that's who you are. You love deep, even when it's killing you. You stay, even when it's clear they don't want you to. And that's what broke you. Not them, not their actions, but the way you kept betraying yourself just to keep them. And now look at you, tired, heavy, cold, not because you're weak, but because you kept giving warmth to people who came with frost in their veins. And the truth is, not everyone who smiles at you wants to see you rise. Some of them. They just want to be close enough to dim your light when it shines too bright. That's why you felt drained every time you tried to bring them peace. That's why your joy felt temporary, like a stolen breath. Because they weren't meant to walk with you. They were just passing through. Lessons, warnings, reminders, not companions. And the second you stop forcing permanence on temporary people, your whole life changes. You gotta understand. People don't leave you because you're broken. They leave because they can't benefit anymore. That's the ugly part no one wants to admit. You were useful. You were a healer, a listener, a giver. And when your well ran dry, they vanished like it was your fault for running empty. That's not love. That's exploitation. And now you're here, digging through your own heart, trying to find pieces of yourself in the ruins they left. But maybe that's exactly what needed to happen. Maybe the collapse was the blessing, because now you see who's real. Now you see who stood beside you when the masks fell off. And most importantly, now you see who you are when there's no one left to lean on but yourself. It's a hard truth, I know. But healing don't come with sugarcoating. It comes with fire. It comes with nights where you cry so hard your chest feels like it's collapsing. It comes with mornings where you wake up and the world feels too heavy to carry. But you carry it anyway. Why? Because you were built for more than this pain. Because your journey doesn't end here. It begins here. In this silence, in this solitude, in this brutal, beautiful moment where you stop asking why they left and start asking why you stayed so long. And once you answer that, once you face that reflection with honesty, not excuses, that's when the chains break. That's when the old version of you dies. And the real one, the savage, focused, unshakable version, is born. So walk away, not with bitterness, with clarity, not with anger, with awareness. Don't curse them. Thank them. Thank them for teaching you exactly what you don't deserve. Thank them for showing you what fake love feels like. So, the next time, you'll recognize the real thing. And while they sit there confused by your silence, you keep walking. Keep building. Keep elevating. Let your distance be your message. Let your success be the response they never saw coming. And let your peace be the revenge they'll never understand. Because at the end of the day, you don't owe anyone an explanation for your growth. You owe yourself a future that doesn't require permission from people who never respected your presence. You want to know the real twist? The real dark irony? The people you sacrificed for, the ones you bent over backwards for, they'll paint you as the villain once you stop giving. That's how twisted it gets. You say no once, and suddenly you're the selfish one. You go quiet, and now you're changing. They don't remember the nights you stayed up comforting them while you were breaking inside. They forget the times you answered their calls in the middle of your storms. The love you gave erased the pain you swallowed, ignored. All they remember is the moment you started acting like they did, detached, unavailable, cold. And when the mirror flipped, they couldn't handle their own reflection. So they blamed you, because accountability, that's a weight most people ain't strong enough to lift. And here's where it gets darker. Some of them didn't love you at all. They loved your light, your energy, your presence. But the moment you started needing instead of giving, they vanished. See, people like that only stay when they're feeding off you. Parasites dressed in pretty skin, smiling mouths, hiding empty souls. They knew what you were worth. They just hoped you didn't. They knew you were rare. That's why they tried to keep you confused, small, unsure. They fed you just enough hope to keep you around, but never enough consistency to feel safe. Because if you ever woke up, if you ever saw your own value, they knew they couldn't control you anymore. And now you're awake. And they're terrified, not of your anger, but of your absence. Because when someone real goes silent, that silence screams. So don't explain yourself. Not now. Not ever again. You've done enough talking, enough forgiving, enough lowering your voice just to make them comfortable. Let them sit with the version of you that doesn't answer texts, that doesn't chase, that doesn't flinch when they leave. Let them sit with the consequences of losing someone they thought would always be there. That's not revenge. That's justice. Because you didn't change. You evolved. You didn't become heartless. You finally grew a spine. And while they're still trying to find someone else to carry the weight you held for them so effortlessly, you're out here building muscle from the very pain they left you in. That's what makes you dangerous now. Not because you're loud, but because you're done. And I get it. You miss them. You miss who you thought they were, but you don't miss who they became. You miss the illusion, the mask, the story you built around them. But the truth is, they were never that person. They were just a chapter, a necessary wound. And now that it's healing, you're starting to see clearly. You're starting to realize that not everyone is meant to be part of your future. Some were only there to trigger your transformation. And you owe it to yourself to honor that. To leave the past in the past. To walk forward, not out of spite, but out of survival. Because you're not who you used to be. You're harder, colder, sharper, not broken, refined, not bitter, awake. And the path ahead, it's yours, all yours. It won't be easy, it won't be soft, but it'll be yours. And every step you take without them is a step toward the life you were always meant to live. A life where your peace doesn't depend on people's attention. A life where your value isn't up for debate. A life where you don't just survive, you dominate. So leave them behind. Not because they're evil, but because they're no longer part of the mission. And your journey, it's just beginning. Don't look back. Don't explain. Don't pause. Just disappear. And let your glow haunt them in the silence. You ever think about how many times you've had to pretend? Pretend you're okay when you're crumbling inside. Pretend their coldness didn't bother you. Pretend their silence wasn't screaming in your ears. That's the part no one talks about. The weight of carrying your own breaking point like it's nothing. You wore a mask thicker than theirs just to keep the peace. You swallowed every scream, every "why am I not enough?" just to make sure they didn't leave. But here's the joke. They were already halfway out the door. You were holding on to a ghost, talking to shadows, pouring love into a cup with no bottom. And for what? For the hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd finally see you, finally treat you the way you always treated them. They never did. They never planned to. And the longer you stayed, the more pieces of yourself you lost trying to build them. But that stops now. You see, there comes a point when your pain matures, when it stops begging to be understood and starts turning into silence. That heavy, sharp silence that doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't ask. That's power. That's when the game flips. That's when you stop being the victim and start becoming the threat. Because nothing terrifies people more than the version of you that no longer needs their validation, no longer reacts, no longer tries. That version of you, that's evolution. That's the beginning of your real journey. Let them talk. Let them lie. Let them twist the story. They need that. It helps them sleep at night. Because the truth is too loud, too real, too ugly for them to accept. They hurt someone who would have never hurt them. They broke someone who was trying to build them. And now they're left with that regret. They'll mask it with distractions, people, noise. But when the lights go off and the room gets quiet, your name will echo, not because you want it to, but because truth always echoes in empty spaces. And believe me, you left them with a lot of silence to sit in. This journey you're on now, it's not about revenge, it's about resurrection. You're not here to prove anything to them anymore. You're here to reclaim every part of yourself you gave away too easily. Your focus, your love, your patience, your power. Piece by piece, you're pulling it back. And it's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's slow, calculated, cold. That's how it should be. Because healing isn't fireworks. It's war. A silent, disciplined war between who you were and who you're becoming. And every day you choose to stay distant. Every day you choose to build in private. Every day you resist the urge to explain yourself to people who chose confusion. You win. So stop revisiting the wound. Stop replaying the betrayal. You've done enough grieving. Now it's time to rise. It's time to stop asking, why did they do this? And start asking, what will I do now? Because you still have time. You still have strength. You still have that fire, even if it's just a flicker right now. And that flicker, that's all it takes. One spark, one breath, one moment of rage turned into focus. And suddenly, you're not the broken one anymore. You're the silent storm they never saw coming. The one they remember when everything else fades. Because people don't forget the ones who loved them right and then disappeared without a trace. And you're about to become unforgettable. You want to know what really haunts them? It's not that you left, it's that you didn't beg, you didn't scream, you didn't make a scene or throw their name in the mud. You just vanished. Quiet. Cold. Final. And that silence told a story louder than words ever could. Because when someone walks away without a single plea, without a backward glance, it means they've finally seen the truth. It means they've counted every time they were overlooked, disrespected, half-loved, and realized there's nothing left to fix, nothing left to hold on to. You see, people expect you to fall apart when they leave. They expect to see you crawling, apologizing, asking them what you did wrong. But when you don't, when you move on like they never existed, that's what breaks them. That's what keeps them up at night. Because they suddenly realize they were never the center of your world. They were just standing in it. And maybe that's what they feared all along. Maybe that's why they tried so hard to keep you small, to keep you questioning yourself. Because the moment you stop doubting, the moment you realize what you are, you're untouchable. You're dangerous. Not because you're cruel, but because you're finally awake. And when a real one wakes up, when someone who gave love, time, loyalty, when that person stops caring, it shakes the ground beneath the ones who took them for granted. That's why your absence feels louder than your presence ever did. Because it's not just silence, it's a message. It's a reminder, a mirror, a cold reflection of everything they threw away without thought. And you're not the same anymore. That version of you that waited, explained, tried, dead, gone, buried in the ashes of everything they thought they destroyed. What rose instead is something sharper, colder, smarter. You've learned not not just about them, but about yourself. You've seen how deep your love runs, how much you're willing to give, how loyal you can be even when it hurts. And now that you've reclaimed that power, now that you've turned it inward, you're unstoppable, because people like you don't break, you burn, quietly, completely. And in your flames, you don't just destroy what hurt you, you forge something new, a life, a path, a purpose, one that doesn't include them. Let them watch from the sidelines. Let them tell themselves, you were the problem. That's fine. Let them need stories to sleep at night. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to prove anything. Because you're not in the business of chasing clarity from people who live in confusion. You're not here to soothe the egos that cracked you open. You're here for you to rebuild, to become, to go so far in your journey that the person they left behind doesn't even exist anymore. That's the real revenge. That's the masterpiece. A life built so silently, so strongly, that their memory becomes irrelevant. A life where the pain they caused becomes fuel, not chains. And trust me, the day will come. The day they look around and realize no one matches the way you loved. No one listens the way you did. No one stays when it gets ugly like you used to. And they'll try to fill the void with noise. People, parties, distractions. But nothing will fit. Because once someone has tasted real, everything fake becomes unbearable. And that's when it hits. That's when the regret settles in. Quiet, constant, eternal. And you won't even notice. You'll be too far gone, too focused, too alive, because you finally chose you. And that choice, that's the beginning of everything. And when that day comes, and it will, when they look back and realize they let go of someone irreplaceable, they'll try to mask it. They'll post smiles, laugh louder, stay busy. But deep down, they'll feel it. That ache, that void that doesn't make noise, but eats at them every quiet night. Because that's how real ones haunt people. Not with noise, with absence. And your absence, it's going to echo in places they never expected. At 2 a.m. when the party's over. In the arms of someone else who doesn't know how to hold them right. In the small, random things. That food you both liked. That song you once played. That inside joke no one else gets. That's the price they pay when they take loyalty for granted. When they gamble with someone who would have walked through fire for them, just to watch them hand the lighter to someone else. But here's the part you don't realize yet. You were never meant to stay small. You were never built to be a background character in someone else's game. That's why the pain feels so heavy. Because your heart was too big for their hands. And now that you've pulled yourself out of that pit, you're starting to see that this pain had a purpose. It wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to wake you. to sharpen you, to remind you that your worth was never in how much you could give to people who only knew how to take. Your worth is in the way you rise, in the way you rebuild without needing applause, in the way you walk away without needing closure. Because closure isn't something they give you. It's something you give yourself. When you finally understand that nothing they say or do now changes what they chose before. And I know it still hurts. Some nights it'll hit you out of nowhere. That hollow space in your chest. That question, how could they do this after everything? And the answer is simple, even if it's brutal. Because they could. Because some people don't love the way you do. Some people don't recognize treasure when it's handed to them because they're too used to playing with dirt. And when someone only sees value in what's easy, what's flashy, what doesn't ask them to grow, they'll always abandon the real thing. Not because it wasn't good enough, but because it made them feel small. And growth terrifies people who want to stay lazy. So they run. And you're left with the silence. But that silence, that's your rebirth. You don't owe them your story. You don't owe them updates on your healing. You don't need to show them your glow up, your peace, your new life. Keep it private. Keep it sacred. Let them wonder. Let them scroll. Let them try to decode the mystery of your absence. Because when you go quiet after giving everything, it forces people to confront themselves. And most of them can't. So they pretend you never mattered. They'll rewrite the narrative, play the victim. But deep down, they'll feel it. That weight, that guilt, that loss. Because there's a special kind of punishment in watching someone you discarded become everything you'll never touch again. So walk. Don't run. Walk slowly, coldly, with your head high and your soul on fire. And don't look back, not because you're heartless, but because your heart finally learned how to beat for itself. You gave your best, you fought for it, you stayed when you should have left. That's more than enough. Now it's time to live. Not to prove anything, not to make them jealous, but because you deserve peace. You deserve clarity. You deserve to love yourself the way they never knew how to. And when you finally realize that, when it clicks in your chest that your journey is just beginning, that's when you truly leave them behind. They're going to come back one day. Not because they love you, not because they finally understand, but because they miss what you made them feel. Because you were the calm in their chaos, the listener to their noise, the home they never had to build. You were their sanctuary, even when they were your storm. And they'll realize it when the world gets too loud, when the fake smiles drain them, when their new distractions start to feel like mirrors reflecting back emptiness. That's when they'll remember your voice, your presence, your patience, your love. They'll remember how you stood in front of their demons and didn't flinch. How you stayed, even when staying broke pieces of you they never bothered to pick up. And now that you're gone, now that you're silent, that's when your value will hit them like a punch they never saw coming. But it'll be too late, because your back won't turn anymore. You're already too far gone. And listen closely. Don't let that door reopen. Not this time. Because if they cared, truly cared, you wouldn't be here picking up the pieces alone. They had access to the purest version of you, the realest, the most loyal, the one that would have fought for them until your last breath. And they threw it away like it was replaceable, like it was something they could just find again. But here's the truth. You are not replaceable. They'll learn that the hard way. They'll meet people who only love what's easy. People who fold when it gets hard. People who want attention, not connection. And when that happens, when the emptiness creeps back in, they'll think of you, but all they'll have is memory. And you'll have freedom. Because this isn't just about them anymore. This is about every time you doubted your worth. Every time you lowered your voice so they wouldn't feel small. Every time you swallowed your pain to protect theirs. That's done. Over. This new path, it's built on truth. And the truth is, you've wasted too much of your light trying to warm people who were never planning to stay. But now that light belongs to you. And when you turn it inward, when you start pouring into yourself the way you poured into them, you'll see what they never saw. Strength, fire, purpose. Not the fragile version they played with, but the warrior version you were always meant to be. And the silence, it doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you finally understood what deserves your energy. It means you're no longer explaining your soul to people who only hear with convenience. It means your love has grown teeth now. Boundaries, edges, cold, clean focus. And let them call you heartless. Let them say you changed. Because what they really mean is, you stopped letting them disrespect you. You stopped answering to chaos. You stopped being available to people who only knew your worth once it benefited them. And that's what this is about. Not vengeance, not games, not winning them back. It's about never betraying yourself again, just to keep someone else comfortable. So when they come back, and they will, let them knock on a door that no longer exists. Let them chase a version of you that died the day you finally chose peace over pain. And don't say a word. Don't send a message. Don't leave a crack open. Let your silence be the story. Let your success be the funeral. Let your absence be the scar. Because your journey, it's only just begun. And it's no longer about who stays. It's about who you become without them. You know what's funny? The same people who once ignored your presence will start obsessing over your absence. Not because they suddenly love you. No. but because they hate losing control. Because they were never interested in nurturing your soul. They were only interested in knowing it belonged to them. You were their comfort zone, their emotional crutch, the one who always showed up, even when they disappeared. And now that you've gone silent, now that you've walked away without the usual breakdown, without begging for closure, they're stuck, replaying the story, trying to figure out when they lost the grip. But they didn't lose you all at once. They lost you every time they made you feel small. Every time they chose silence over communication. Every time they left you wondering what you did wrong when all you did was love with everything you had. And now they're trapped in their own games. The same games they thought they mastered. The mind tricks, the distance, the coldness. It doesn't work anymore. Because you're not the same. Because you're not playing. You're not reacting. You're not waiting. You're rebuilding quietly, slowly, brutally. You're learning how to stand without needing a hand to hold. You're learning how to pour into yourself instead of wasting energy, filling someone else's cup while yours runs dry. And that version of you, the one who doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't flinch, that version of you terrifies them, because it means they don't have access to you anymore. Not your thoughts, not your heart, not your pain, nothing. And that kind of silence, that kind of withdrawal, it screams louder than all the words you never got to say. But don't you dare feel guilt for outgrowing what broke you. Don't apologize for protecting your peace. You've spent enough time bending. Now it's time to break things. Break the cycle. Break the need to be understood by people who were never listening. Break the idea that love requires sacrifice without limits. Because love isn't supposed to hurt like that. It's not supposed to leave you empty. And just because you were strong enough to carry the weight of the relationship doesn't mean you were meant to. They watched you do it, didn't they? Watched you fight for something they wouldn't lift a finger to protect. And now they'll tell themselves you changed. But no, you just stopped allowing yourself to be dragged through the dirt by people who never deserved to walk beside you. So take every tear you cried and turn it into fuel. Take every time they dismissed your feelings and turn it into fire. Take every memory and let it burn. Not to destroy your past, but to light the path ahead. Because your journey's not about going back. It's about going deeper into your own strength, into your purpose, into the kind of peace that can't be shaken by anyone's absence. And it starts now, not tomorrow, not when they reach out. Now right here, this moment, this silence, this choice. You don't need them to see your worth. You don't need them to regret. That's not your business anymore. Let karma play its role. Let time deliver the lessons. Your only job now is to move forward like nothing behind you is worth turning around for. Because the truth is, it's not. If it was, You wouldn't have had to beg for the bare minimum. You wouldn't have had to question your value. You wouldn't have had to survive someone who claimed they loved you. That's not love. That's a warning sign you ignored too long. But now you've heard it, loud and clear. And what comes next? That's the version of your story no one can write but you. One where the only person you chase is your higher self. One where your silence isn't sadness, it's strategy. One where your peace becomes so loud it drowns out everything they ever said to break you. And in that silence, your journey truly begins.